I mean, at that point, when you ran into family members or other people like that, did you find that you were trying to modulate your behavior around them and making,
Sure.
or
But
so
but
that's
this is
like an
exactly the
internal
point.
tug of war you create for yourself.
And this is exactly the point of why expression is so powerful, because as much as it can attract the attention you want, you also attract negative attention with it. So not only are we dealing with survival in terms of trying to earn more money, this is what survival is these days, to make ends meet. And sometimes it's about like personal safety, right? Like if I were in a neighborhood, maybe in a culture, anywhere where my way of being was frowned upon, like with a limp wrist somewhere, this will also set red flags. And yeah, and of course, it this is not what we deal with, I think, in Feldenkrais, but it's sort of in the same family where sometimes, it's like, I don't know why people like they don't see me as trustworthy or something, like why don't they see me as someone dependable or whatever, and you're going around like this, and it's very, very different when you're speaking from this place. So, but anyways, back to my story. Yes, I think all of what I've written recently about sensuality and all my stirrings about what movement means, and what health means, and what does artistry, freedom as a person means, it comes from these experiences in my childhood, which, and I hardly think about it now. And being gay for me is like I'm proud to say that at this moment, I forgot that it was an issue. Sometimes I'm like, oh yes, my type is supposed to like women, like, so I've really come a long way. But back then I remember it was like, oh, like I didn't even see the struggle I was in, but that was my reality. Like, oh, I shouldn't be like this, but then how should I be? Because already I was dealing with authenticity. And I think that this was before I was 10. And like, oh, but it still seems like I don't want to be that cliche basketball type. Everyone was playing basketball at that time, but why do I have to? Like, I want to be doing other things which are cool. But if I do that, it's, people laugh at me, or people make me feel bad. They say things that, and sometimes I remember that it was not really hard for me. I didn't want my mom to hear it because it would hurt her even more. And so, yeah, I think I really was offered a lens into how important movement is, and how we can have flexibility with it.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and it's really interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking of, in my case, as you know, I've done some dance, but I'm not trained at all. It was all in improvisational context. I was in a dance group here in Washington, D.C. for maybe it was only a half a year or so, but I was in a number of performances, and it was all based on improvisation. But before that, I'm someone who's actually, at a certain point, I thought, gosh, maybe if I had been introduced to dance as a young person, that would have been a great thing for me, because it's only, I realized that I've loved movement for much longer than I realized I loved movement.
Mhm.
So when I was like a teenager or whatever, I would just put on music and be in my room, and I would move around because it felt good, but I wasn't thinking about performance, but I was really, you know, moving around and doing this. But I've done so much of it that at a certain point I was like, But one distinct thing that I know I felt a number of times just by following the feeling in my body and moving is, every once in a while I would think to myself, I think I'm moving a little more like a girl, or I'm moving a little more womanly right now. And there was this simultaneous feeling of like, maybe I don't want someone to see me doing that. And at the same time, there was this feeling of like, oh, wow, if I don't worry about that, I get to feel things in my body that
Mm.
I don't normally feel when I do my guy thing, because I probably was trying to look more like a basketball player, whatever, growing up, but I had those experiences, and today also just doing Feldenkrais, you realize that even just the conception of how a man should move or how a woman should move, it's limiting. It's not necessarily, again, right or wrong for any particular individual. You know, some people are going to feel really good to meet the expectations that everyone has and not feel that they are somehow artificially molding themselves into something that they're not. But the willingness to do something that doesn't even fit the stereotype of our given gender is actually can be very liberating. Just because, again, literally, you'll feel sensations you wouldn't feel otherwise.
Yeah, it's you know, it also helped me understand what people were trying to do in meditation, to um, observe the existence of the judgments and then find, let's say, the space between the judgments. Um, and this is it, that, you know, I have to say that non there are people, there are choreographers that would rather work with actors or with people who are not trained, because I think that the that individual, that's the system, is listening to something else, is feeling something else. It's not feeling and acting according to the judgments of the formation, the training, right, of the dancer, but it is based on the feeling of the functionality of the movements. So I know several dancer friends who started late, 17, 18, even 20, and they turned out to be magnificent dancers. And what that you know in another lifetime, maybe, or I'll collaborate with someone to do a study. But I think that these individuals have more self authority because they have been, there are certain things where they just do it, and the right is functional. Everyone has standards, but their standard is functional. It's not just aesthetic. And so they have that very strong filter of functionality in no matter what they do, no matter what challenges, what tasks they're given in a professional dance setting. They deal with it differently. They don't give up themselves into injury or, like, into more dangerous places, I think, because they're feeling what is actually beneficial and favorable for their bodies.